In this particular episode, I'd like to discuss, well, the patent wars that were sort of accentuated. You really couldn't call them much patent wars until, well, maybe now, but accentuated this last week with the award of $1 billion in damages to Apple against Samsung. I'm not going to go into the editorial commentary of the process, the patent process, what this means to the companies, but what we need to conceive of and think about is what it means to all the people of the world. And it's not just a question of consumer choice, it's actually a question of time, and time is money. And it's a question of doing the best things that we can do, or not the best things, which, well, if they're not the best, they're subpar, right? They're like, we could be doing better, unless par is the best, but, well, that's par for the course. Who knows? So here's the point that I wanted to make about that particular dispute. As people that particularly know, and I come from the technology industry, come from Motorola, so I've watched this sort of patent thing for many years. In fact, I'm sort of surprised that it's taken this long because, you look at for example, Motorola's patent portfolio that's now much owned by Google in defense is like, well, they've got a huge portfolio. In fact, the courts in Chicago just sort of called it a stalemate between them. In fact, that's actually what it's been for many, many years with IBM, Motorola, and many technology companies, and Microsoft more recently, sort of a stalemate over patents that caused none of the patents to be enforced. But that's not necessarily good because it basically puts the patent holder in a position where he's not getting the value for his patent. But then again, the patent holder has a monopoly on that patent, and sometimes the monopoly is so great that it can distort the market. But let's put that aside. The vision I had for the futures of Earth is, imagine, and this is why you sort of had to do it, in order to put it all together, imagine that we could buy all of the technology companies together, amass them sort of like a fund, but we'd actually own them and just like have control of them. And we'd buy Apple and Google and Motorola and Intel and Microsoft and, well, Dell. I don't know if that's a technology company as much as a distribution company. But anyway, we'd go through the whole thing, HP, you name it. We'd buy them all out. And then we'd look at their portfolio. But actually, my plan back in 2005 was, when we bought them out, well, I asked them back then, who took a bite out of Steve Jobs' Apple? And then after I gave people an opportunity to answer that question, who took a bite out of Steve Jobs' Apple? And then I would answer, the Gates. The Gates killed the Jobs. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs together conspired to kill the computer by allowing Microsoft to create a dominant market position as a fast follower of Apple, who had clearly the better product strategy and, more creative mind. So when I imagined buying all the technologies, putting them together, I said, okay, I imagined as a simple thing. It's like, you have to make it simple. So my simple thing is at the top of the board of angels. This is the board that I imagined really ruling the entire technology and business enterprise of the world. You basically have the Google guys, and you'd have Bill Gates, and Bill Gates play in technology, but his job was to roll up all the charities on Earth into one global charity that was tied to our technology enterprise, that had measures and that provided best-in-class charity direct to the people with using technology. And that got interesting. But basically, the point is, if you had Steve Jobs architecting the enterprise of the future, the enterprise of humanity, or communications, anyway, the point is, he couldn't do it alone, but you need leadership and you need vision. And the question you start getting to yourself is, do you want all these different variations of products? The problem that happens with the patents is that, when Samsung or anybody has to go around a particular patent, they come up with a kludgy fix. But then what they miss out, what's never really measured in the measurement, the global measurement of us, is all of the training plans, all of the things we have to lose, all the bad things we have to do because we can't do it better. And actually, a lot of those bad things are stupidly engineered in the first place. Steve Jobs wouldn't even have been able to wipe out the cellular technology market, wouldn't have been able to take it from Motorola, who owned it, if they hadn't been stupid, if they hadn't missed the point of the merging of computers and communications. They knew, if they had only known how to do software, if they'd only known how to do a user interface that wasn't a phone. But anyway, or that was more than a phone, let's say. So here's the thing. If you see, in my vision of the world, you'd cancel Windows or Vista, whatever you want to call it today. You'd cancel it. Let Microsoft focus on Xbox or Office, and, you'd cancel lots of things. You'd have common enterprise softwares, common networks. You wouldn't worry about competing standards unless it made sense for them to compete within the umbrella of us, because we needed that competitive standards. But you'd allow enterprises to create better monopolies. Now, that's the problem. Because if you allow sort of a greater monopoly of us, then, you're going to get people monopolized by these capitalists. And that's where it comes in, the plan that says, if you start to consolidate these monopolies into one monopoly, and identify the right things to do, and right things, do them in volume. You see, if you took anything, just imagine today, it's very, very simple. Take an iPad or iPhone and make it the 90% market share volume device on Earth. And guess what? Overnight, its cost could drive down. Now, do they get captured into the monopoly cost? Well, they could, but, what if we see, the point is this: we can, by doing the best things right and doing them in volume, we can provide everybody a far more powerful solution. We can basically drive. Why couldn't an iPad be $100? Why couldn't we give everybody on the planet their own iPad, an iPad service? And that gets into an interesting thing, because if you start networking every person on the planet into a common architecture, allowing integrated FaceTime across virtual space, allowing communications, allowing knowledge to be set free, and that gets to other points, the freeing and the freedom of knowledge. There are business models within Google of the freeing of knowledge. Just imagine the ultimate perfect enterprise where the people own the technology and we monopolize ourselves. And then, here's the notion. When you buy a product from our enterprise, your next iPad, or you do a search on Google, or anything where our enterprise, one of our little enterprise stars, they're all separate businesses still, maybe common architectures, that's a complicated internal, how do you do a globally connected enterprise best? But anyway, I don't have the answers, but I know we could figure them out if we put the brain power. But we only put our brain power in fighting each other. Imagine if we put our brain power together on doing the best things across things. Now, here's the problem with a lot of this. If you start creating this global restructuring, almost do a Bain Capital times 999. That's right, Bain Capital. But you'd actually, in the short run, you might lay off lots of jobs, because there's jobs that are in companies that we no longer need what they're doing. We'd say the technology roadmap. See, the thing is, we need a global technology roadmap. Now, I know we can't plan that far, but we need a technology roadmap. It takes us 5 to 20 to maybe even 100 years out, but let's just start to the 5 to 20 and tie our technologies together, our softwares, our hardwares, our communications technologies, and then our business process technologies. And that's actually the biggest part of it, because when you look at the future, it's about business processes, and we don't want to just automate. You don't just automate. Ask IBM. Ask the people to know. You don't just automate the things we do and do them faster. You say, what are the right things to do? And then let's do those. And that almost gets into sort of morality equations that are beyond technology, but not necessarily. Because one of the first things that you look at is like, what is the right thing to do? Is war right? Or is war wrong? And I think war is wrong. War in all its forms is self-perpetuating. The violence and killing on our streets, injustice is wrong. It's self-perpetuating. As long as we allow war and injustice to perpetuate itself, well, we'll have a perpetuation of war and injustice. However, as soon as we put down our swords, turn our swords into plowshares, our spears into pruning hooks, turn our violences into streets, into justice and good works, and an integrated community of us working together in one common cause. Well, as soon as we start with that notion and look towards those things that advance humanity rather than divide humanity, we do different things. And that's maybe even more important than the technology aspect of this. But imagine a world which isn't really hard. Well, we basically create a merger of all the technology companies on Earth and say, now we own them. Now what happens? Well, wait, who owned them before? But they're getting a stock in a bigger thing. That's the thing I say right here. It's we, the people of Earth, .biz. It's like, you give me your Oracle or your Apple, and I'll give you .biz. You still own Oracle or Apple, but it's in .biz. And now if we decide we're going to cancel .badbiz and promote .goodbiz, then nobody loses. You're all in. We, the people of Earth, .biz. Cancel bad biz. Make it go away. We'll make it up in good biz. That's the name of business. Doing it right and getting it right over time and planning a future for Earth. Well, the reason you can't get your arms around fixing the big government problem is you don't allow enterprises to get big enough. And enterprises have no justification to get big enough if they can't learn how to do the right things. And they can't because they're working for pieces of paper. They're working for capital. They're working for money. An illusion of wealth. Well, we won't even get into that right now. But they're not working for the future of the planet, which is actually in the best interest of their own money. And that's where it gets interesting. But anyway, the point I'd like to make, and my final point, well, my final point is never final. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to write for a while and just make these videos. One day they may go viral. Maybe my ideas are really crazy, but it's beyond libertarianism. It's actually sort of imagine an enterprise that takes over the roles of government. See, governments should be more like enterprises, but we should recognize the business of people is the advancement of people. And that's where Ayn Rand had a little bit off, because she didn't recognize that, well, we need people. We need the eyeballs for the Google searches. We need the buyers of iPads and iPhones. Without those, we have no economy. We have no prosperity. We need to grow the people, and we need to grow their wealth. And unless we do that on a global basis, we fail. And so, for a few to win and the rest to lose is a losing proposition. That's the point. We'll be back. Bye.